Hello and welcome to the weekly BB Bobcat Breakdown, where a couple of Texas State students dive into details of Texas State athletic events that occur each week. With that in mind, the way to learn is by listening, the way to listen is by learning, and the only way to start is by starting. So let's get into it. I'm your host, Luke Fox. I'm a sophomore here at Texas State, and I'm majoring in electronic media.
My name is Carly Ernest, and I'm a senior at Texas State, and I'm majoring in public relations.
I'm Casey Nixon. I'm also a senior at Texas State, and I'm majoring in electronic media.
Alright, so here's how the layout of this episode is going to go. We're going to start off with the Texas State football loss against the Detroit Trojans. After that, we're going to go into the Texas State soccer at the Sun Belt Conference, finishing up their fall season. Then we're going to go into men's and women's golf. At the men's golf at the Capole Invitational and the women's golf at the Hurricane Invitational. After that, we have the Texas State, and finishing it off at volleyball pair of wins event against Arkansas State. So let's get into the first game. Before we start this game, I want to first introduce a special guest that we have.
Yeah, I'm Alexander Teria. I'm a graduate student in mass communication and instructional assistant.
Awesome. So he's kind of our on-the-field informant, going to be talking about how he thinks the football game went overall. And the final score of that game was a 13-31 loss for Texas State. Now, unfortunately, on a 12-loss streak against Troy. And their first and only win was back in 1997. So this game, there was a lot of weight on this game because the Texas State football team was doing really great. They were going 5-2, trying to get that bowl eligibility with that 6th win, and there was a lot riding on their shoulders. They not only had a long break because of the bye week, so they were maybe a little bit rusty going off from that week. They had to warm up a little bit, but no, they hit this game like really strong in that first half, going 10-7. So they were actually winning that first half, but ended up losing it in the second half. So here's a question: what do you think Texas State could have done differently to get that win?
Yeah, so first of all, I feel like in the second half, they made series of mistakes, fumbles, interceptions, and failures to convert on third down in the red zone. So these mistakes really affected them. And also in the fourth quarter, I feel like Texas State looked very tired, and they didn't really have the endurance to play with Troy.
Yeah.
And it's taking the first lead in the first half, and now in the fourth quarter, like the players look very tired, and they were really fumbling with the ball. So I felt they could have avoided that.
Yeah, I also agree. I think interceptions are like a big climax to the game. I feel like once that happens, it's kind of hard to for the team to shake back after something like that. So especially after 2, it was probably hard for them to come back from that.
Yeah, honestly, I did notice, I wasn't able to attend the game sadly, but I was busy watching from my phone at home, and I was extremely proud of Texas State kind of being on top towards the second half, and then I logged on my phone maybe 5 minutes later and kind of saw their downfall, and honestly, it was really sad, but I think that they did the best that they could with what they had, and I'm kind of excited for this upcoming week's game.
Yeah, and another thing is that I feel like Texas State going on in the next game, they should try and avoid a lot of penalties, because penalties really also hurt the team. There were some frustrating third and longs turning into the first downs, which could have been avoided.
Yeah, and it wasn't just penalties. I mean, Texas State had 2 fumbles lost and 2 interceptions thrown, compared to Troy having neither of any. And so whenever you're just making mistakes like that, and you're just giving away, just allowing for easy turnovers, then you're just asking for the other team to come back on you. And just if you weren't there at the game, Troy in the final quarter scored 17 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, which whenever you do that and you're at a neck and neck game, whenever it's back and forth, Texas State barely having that lead, 17 unanswered points, that's game over. There's whenever you allow that, there's very little that you can do. And this is very similar to a previous loss they had against the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, who fell apart in the second half, and Texas State lost against them. I believe the score was 30-34, something very similar to that. And so Texas State, once again, they had that lead in the first half. They had it by a good amount, and then they just allowed Louisiana to come right back under the feet and sweep them. And so that's kind of been a repeating concern for the Texas State football team. It's where I don't know if they're just getting tired. I don't know if they're starting to get a little too overconfident because of this. Maybe it's just the stress. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of fans watching them, Texas State and from Troy that are, it's a lot on the shoulders, and so I can imagine that is a very tough spot to be in for the Texas State football team.
Honestly, in my opinion, I do. I think it's overconfidence. I think they kind of get in their heads a little bit, thinking that they're like all that just because they won the past couple of games. And, the crowd's cheering for them. They're doing well up to the second half. And this team, Troy, is literally matched with us. So I would be impressed with myself too. And then, they kind of fumble it.
I also feel like it's kind of hard to come back from, like, when you do something like have 17, like, points in a row or whatever, like, unmatched, it's like the chemistry of the other team really starts to, like, get going. So it's kind of hard. You kind of get intimidated when, like, the whole team is, like...
Yeah, it just starts spiraling out of control. So, if you have that lead for so long and then you lose that lead, I can imagine that really helps your morale very much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I also think that they really had a great momentum from the beginning, especially their defense. They had a very impressive game. There's this number 33, is it TJ Thompson? Like, he really had a good game, a lot of sacks that were very inconsequential due to their failure to follow up on a positive play. Yeah, so I think going forward, that's something they should work on, their defense, try to make sure that they're fumbling with the ball and all those kind of things are being avoided. Yeah.
Yeah, as discussed last week, Texas State was ranked number 1 best offense, scoring 38.3 points per game, and then 491.3 total yards, compared to Troy that had the best defense in both scoring and yards allowed. So whenever you have like a high offensive team going against a high defensive team, it's anyone's game. We knew it was going to be a lower scoring game, and that was very evident. And overall it was a close game until the last quarter. So it was close until the very end. So yeah, and just a couple of other stats. Texas State scored a touchdown at the very beginning, within the first couple of minutes, by Ashton Hawkins. Whenever you score, and that was the only points that ever happened in that first quarter, and you score and you keep that lead for so long, then that's a huge morale boost. And that just, I guess that started to waver off as the game kind of went on. And they also were playing against a team that played differently than that they have really faced against opponents. Looking at the stats, we have passing TJ Finley with 262 yards, and then Gunnar Watson for Troy at 392 yards. And then we have for rushing Ismail Mahdi with 128 yards. And then Troy only had 28 total yards for rushing. And I feel like Texas State in the past, these last games, it has been a very rushing heavy game. And that Texas State has a great offense. They're great at rushing. Ismail Mahdi is a beast out there. But and TJ Finley is typically always the leading in terms of total passing yards. But going into this, Troy relied basically solely off of these passing yards, going 392 by Gunnar Watson, and Texas State just wasn't great at stopping those. And so it just takes a couple of breakaways, a couple of mistakes from Texas State, and then they're able to really jump in there and take that lead away from Texas State. Yeah, so their next game is going to be Texas State versus the GA Southern, Georgia Southern. And this will be happening November 4th, Saturday at 4 p.m. And this is a home game. So, interesting enough, this is going to be the Texas State's third home game in a row, which hasn't happened for a number of years. And so that's really exciting. So I remember the game that we had like 2 weeks ago had like an attendance of like 17,000 or something like that. And the homecoming game, another high attendance. So let's keep that record going and have this third game also have super high attendance so that we can really encourage the football team and really get them, because they just need that one more win for full eligibility.
They just need one more win so we can secure that ball game.
Yeah.
It would be really big for them. So.
Yeah, and there's only a couple of games left in the season, so if they lose against GA Southern, then it's going to be kind of scary. It's going to be like, wow, they had it so close, but it was so far. So it'll be interesting to see. GA Southern is going to be no easy team to go against, though.
Do they already have their bowl game secured, huh?
Yes, they do. Yeah. GA Southern is right now at 6-2, and they just some common stats against common teams that Texas State and GA has played against. They both played against LA Monroe. GA Southern beat them 38-28, and then Texas State football played against them just a couple of weeks back and beat them 21-20, a very close game. And I remember that was the game where Texas State came back It was very, very close, and then got a very great touchdown at the very end. But looking at the stats, 38-28 compared to 21-20, there is definitely a difference there. So this will be no easy game for Texas State football. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. This will be Saturday at 4 p.m., November 4th, home game. Make sure to show up. All right, let's go into our second sport, soccer. Now, soccer played 2 games. They had finished their fall season for the main Sun Belt portion of it, and so they were going into the Sun Belt tournament, and they played 2 games. The first team that they played against was the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. Now, they had previously went against them earlier in the season and went 3-0 on September 17th. And so they absolutely destroyed Louisiana. So going into this game, I thought it was no surprise that they would win at this game 2-1 for a Bobcat win. So it was a lot closer than I was kind of expecting the game to play out, as they had previously gone 3-0. But yeah, that was October 30th, by the way. Now, this was their first game in the Sun Belt tournament, and this was their first win in the tournament since 2018. So it's been a number of wins, and it was their first time seeing 2 goals in a conference tournament since 2013.
A lot of firsts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Olivia Wright absolutely killing out there. She's been basically the top goal scorer for the Texas State soccer team for the last couple of games now, and she's been absolutely killing it. And Olivia Wright and Maddie Sumer scored the 2 goals for Texas State. And just looking at a couple of other stats, we have Caitlin Draper with 7 saves. 7 saves compared to Louisiana with only 1 save. And looking at the shots on goal, that kind of describes what's going on there. We have 3 shots on goal for Texas State and 8 shots on goal for Louisiana. You can really see how, even though the Bobcats came out with the win, it was a very defensive game for them. And the few breakaways that they got ended up being points, and that was what allowed them to get their control, stay in control of that game. And it was a very close game. It really could have gone either way. And looking at that, Caitlin Draper absolutely saving it. She's been a star player for the Texas State soccer team, absolutely killing it. Amazing job being a freshman and basically finishing up her first.
I didn't even know she was a freshman until like a couple weeks ago. And I think after the 7 saves, I brought her to like 61 total saves for the season up until the next game. But yeah, it's kind of
honestly, I was gonna point out Draper as well, just because like out of the games that I've attended, I've seen her practice prior, and it's crazy.
Yeah, her
she's
warm-up
extremely devoted. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then when she does play, they don't trade her out. She plays the entire game, and honestly, like when she's playing, I've noticed that the other goalies and the other teams, they get injured, they fall out. Like we trade them out a couple of times, and Caitlin's still standing.
Yeah,
so you know what? Like she's a damn good goalie.
You can only imagine how much that intimidates the other team whenever they're getting so close every single time, but nothing's making it.
Yeah, you can see it. Like her demeanor is like.
Oh yeah, she
maybe
looks
this
serious.
ball is not going.
Yeah.
She's got the confidence of a senior out there playing.
Yeah, that's
and
I
even
didn't
though
know
she's a freshman, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good job, Caitlin Draper. And then just looking at that, so Texas State only had 3 shots on goal, and they were able to score 2 goals, and so that's just pinpoint accuracy right there. The offensive side of Texas State, they only got a couple of breakaways, but they were able to make those count, and with that, they got that win. And because of that, they got that win, they were able to move on to the tournament to play their second game against South Alabama. And just a little bit of backstory. They played South Alabama on November 1st. So, they just played them on November 1st. And then they played them prior on October 22nd and went 0-4. So this was one of the bigger defeats that the Texas State soccer team had experienced. But going into this game, it was only a 1-2 loss. It was a very close game. So previously going 0-4 and then making it a 1-2, they were able to really come back and have a very close chance at beating this team. And looking at South Alabama, they're right now 16 wins, 0 losses, and 3 ties for the season, the entire season. That's just amazing. South Alabama is currently undefeated compared to Texas State, who's still doing really great, but it was a tough match. South Alabama being the first seed, Texas State being the eighth seed of this, and so whenever you see like a first seed against the eighth seed, you're like, okay, it's going to be a destroy. South Alabama's going to win clearly, but going to this game, it wasn't as close as I really, or it was a lot closer than I had originally imagined that the game would go. And looking at the couple of stats, we have shots on goal was 5-7, so very neck to neck, and then overall shots was 12-14. So even though it was such a close game, it really could have gone either way.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, they were just able to, or South Alabama was able to just sneak in a couple more goals than Texas State, but it could have really gone either way. And because they lost the game, that was the final game of the season, ending off the fall season for the Texas State women's soccer team.
Yeah, I think that I'm so proud of them, like even for the coach, this was his first career post-win. And he even said that, it was tough to see the season come to an end, but, he couldn't be more proud of how they finished. I couldn't agree more. Like I said, they've had a lot of firsts, and it was a really good season for them, and they came this far, and they broke a lot of barriers that they haven't broke before. So it's still good. It still sucks that it ended, but...
Yeah, and that'll finish up with us talking about soccer. So let's get into the next sport. Before we get into volleyball, we're going to quickly mention that men's golf and women's golf played this last week. And we're going to start off with the men's golf at the Kapolei Invitational in Hawaii. So they went over to Hawaii. That's a really cool experience. And this was their last tournament of the season. And Texas State finished 4th out of 19 teams. Very impressive. And set a program record for the lowest 54-hole score at the Invitational, going 44 under 820. That's crazy. If you know anything about golf, that's very, very impressive. And Texas State led in both pars and eagles, and they absolutely dominated out there. They did a really great job. They were playing against some very tough opponents, and they were still able to get 4th place. And Saka played against, or Saka Siltala tied for 5th. Sorry if I pronounced that name, and was his first appearance for the season, finishing 14 under 202. So this was his first game playing with Texas State for this fall season, and he got 5th place. Very impressive. And next behind was Tom Rode Carlson at 25th, 8 under 208. And very impressive for Texas State going 4th. I know that their last tournament that they played against, they struggled a little bit, and they weren't quite able to hit those pars like they were trying to go for, try to get those under points on them, and they just really struggled this last tournament that they played against a couple of weeks back. And so going and seeing the men's golf really perform really well and go above expectations is very great to see for a Texas State student. And their next season, opening up the spring season at the Hall Williams Collegiate in Alabama from February 12th through the 13th. And so that's a little bit of a ways away, going in February. That's kind of going to be a repeating theme of a lot of these things. Whenever you finish up your fall season, then you kind of like start back up early February, and you kind of like skip over January. And that's it for the men's golf for the fall season. So let's get into women's golf. Women's golf went October 30th through the 31st at the Hurricane Invitational in Miami. Their last turn of the season also, and they also finished 4th place with 6 under 858. Yvonne Shamnis led at 16th place with 2 under 214, tied with Carla Bordeaux, and both getting 16th place, very impressive. And then Haley Jones at 21st place with 1 under 215. Their next season will start up for the spring season, will be hosted at the Texas State Invitational in New Braunfels at the Landa Park Golf Club, February 5th through the 6th. And so make sure to really encourage our Texas State golf players out there. They're doing a very impressive job. They did, both men's and golf did really great this fall season, and it'll be interesting to see how they continue to play going into the spring season. All right, let's finish off this episode with talking about volleyball. Now, volleyball played 2 games. They played both of them against Arkansas State. That first game they went against was a 3-1 win for Texas State, and both of them were away games at Jonesboro, Arkansas. So, no surprise here. We have KJ Johnson with 9 kills, 4 blocks, and 2 aces, followed right behind, and really a star player that we haven't really talked a whole lot about other than like this last week is Jade DeFrey with 8 blocks, and at this game she has now scored a total of 91 blocks this season.
Wow.
That's absolutely insane, and there's been really a reoccurring theme of how the Texas State volleyball team has had just an amazing defense, and I mean the common saying goes like the best offense is a good defense, and that's especially present in volleyball where those defense can really just rack up points for your team, and that was really present in this game going against Arkansas State and absolutely killing it out there, Jade DeFrey. And with that game, Texas State volleyball is now 15-7 for the season and 8-3 for the Sun Belt, and blocks, as I mentioned earlier, is 17-5. So they had 17-5. And I think that was a really major point in why Texas State volleyball was able to get that strong lead. And this was a very similar blocking, scoring like presence compared to whenever they played against South Alabama. And South Alabama was a really good team. They were doing really good in their season, and they just weren't able to come close to Texas State because the blocks there, and Texas State was able to, through those blocks, really be able to put a nail in the coffin and really be able to claim that first game. Going to the second game, it was a score of 3-0 Bobcat sweep, and I mean, I guess that's no surprise. They're going 3-1 and then going 3-0. Very impressive. And that second game was on October 28th, and they had a conference high .352 hitting percent. Very impressive. This was a big game for them, and just really allowing them to show their dominance over Arkansas State for these 2 games. KJ Johnson once again being in the lead with 11 kills, with Maggie Walsh also tying that with 11 kills, both being star players. I remember beginning of the season we hadn't seen a whole lot of Maggie Walsh for those first few games, and then in the second half of this fall season she's up there almost every single time, so she's been able to really kill it out there. Just a couple of stats. We have aces at 6-1. We haven't really seen a whole lot of Texas State aces going on, especially against South Alabama. I remember they actually got a decent out that first game, but that second game they only got 1 ace or something like that. So it's really nice to be able to see that, and just a block 7-2. So it's not only does the Texas State volleyball team have a strong offense, but they also have a strong defense at the same time.
Honestly, if I was ASU, I would have gone home during that first set of the first game. Because imagine, I believe the score was they were 18 and we were 25, and then they won the second set, and then 13-25 and 16-25. If my team was that low and I couldn't make a comeback or even be somewhere in the 20 span of finishing the set, I would have gone home. Honestly, I would have. And I would also like to point out that Ryan Torres, she's kind of just a staple of the team. I would say that she doesn't get a lot of recognition, but then she also does. Yeah. She's very good with her assists. She's always setting up almost every single kill that KJ Johnson and Maggie Walsh gets over that net. So
yeah, she absolutely leads every single game in assists. No doubt about it.
She had 31.
31.
In the first game.
Mm-hmm.
So
she's crazy. I know starting the year and everything, I really thought that she was kind of the leader of the pack, and then I know you said KJ Johnson has been coming in clutch lately, but when I first saw her play, I originally thought she's good, but it's okay. And now she's just absolutely taken me by shock. She's swiped every single game off the field.
It's really been a tag team between KJ Johnson, Samantha Wunsch, and Maggie Walsh. Mm-hmm. Those 3 have just been able to get those points, get all those kills for Texas State, and through them, it's been really powerful. And it's really interesting to not see Samantha Wunsch up there. I don't know if she attended those games or not, but
I'm not sure.
All I know is that Maggie Walsh is almost the main cause for all of our aces. I don't know if
Oh,
you noticed
yes.
that.
Yeah.
Every single ace
Every
has been
single ace
Maggie.
is Maggie Walsh. I know, man. She's just got that serve down, and yeah, very impressive. And with that, Texas State volleyball is now 9-3 for the Sun Belt, and they've only got another 2 weeks left in their fall season. And I believe that they're going to be also going into the Sun Belt tournament, and that'll be interesting to see how that happens. We don't know the exact dates and stuff for that tournament quite yet, but that'll be coming up within the next couple of weeks. But next up, they're going to be playing against Troy. Now, Troy is a beast of a volleyball team. They are the current West Division leaders, and Texas State will be playing them on November 3rd and 4th, and both these games will be away games. Now, Troy is 13-9 for the season, but they're 11-1 for their conference. So, playing in their conference, this is going to be a very tough game. And I feel like within these last couple of games, Texas State volleyball has been playing against good teams, but I want to say they've been playing against like really, really solid teams. And so I think Troy will be that really, really solid team. And so it'll be really interesting to see how they're able to keep up against a team that has a lot of backing on them. So
Honestly, I kind of wish they were playing Troy at home. Like, I would love to see
yeah,
this kind
that
of
would be a
unfold.
great game to go to, no doubt about it. I also wanted to mention that basketball season is really coming up on us, and that's really only 1 week away, and actually less than 1 week away, as their first game for Texas State basketball will be against Little Rock, and that will be an away game November 6th at 7 p.m. So that's going to be really exciting to see how our basketball team really steps up. I know they did decent last season. It wasn't crazy or nothing like super impressive, but I think we've seen in this fall season we've had a lot of teams that we had expectations for, and then those teams absolutely just rose above those expectations. So it'll be interesting to see if basketball will be able to keep that up. And then I believe after that, the week after, there's going to be a home game. So I hope that for that first home game that we can have an attendance that's just unheard of. And so that's only 2 weeks away, and the first game's only a couple of days away. So make sure to be hyping up our basketball team out there, as that's going to be really big for them going into this spring season.
You know what I did notice? Men's basketball is only playing at home like 2 to 3 times.
Really?
The whole semester, the whole season, they're barely playing at home. Women's is kind of dominating the use of Strahan, and they're mostly playing away games. I was very shocked by it because I want to go to the men's basketball games, and they're just not at home this season.
Huh. Wow, I didn't know about that. That's kind of an interesting list. So we'll make sure to let you know when all the home games as they're coming around, so that you can. Hey, if we only have a few home games, we have to make those home games count.
Pack them out.
So yeah, exactly. So yeah, that'll really conclude us. So let me do a quick upcoming games that we had just mentioned. We have the Texas State versus GA Southern home game November 4th at 4 p.m. Make sure to show up for that game. That's going to be a big one. That's going to be a tough team that they're going against, and this is potentially bowl eligibility. So let's support our Texas State football team so that they can get that and go into the tournaments. After that, we have the Texas State volleyball versus Troy away games on November 3rd and 4th. After that, we have the first Texas State basketball team, as I just mentioned, against Little Rock, November 6th at 7 p.m. And then really, we don't have a lot going on anymore because the fall season is really starting to come to a close. And not only is the fall season for the main Texas State sports, but also intramurals are coming to a close. I know volleyball is just now finishing up, and most of them are just going into their final weeks of tournaments. So each divisions for each of the intramurals are now starting to compete against each other and see who's the number one team at school.
Them and also club sports right now.
Absolutely.
But it is exciting because like we get a fresh new set of sports, and honestly,
Yeah.
I'm kind of a nerd for baseball, so I'm really excited for that to take place.
Yeah, we got basketball, we got baseball, we got lacrosse coming up. Yeah, we have a lot being present, so it'll be interesting to see how spring really shapes for Texas State. So that'll be really exciting, and that's only a couple weeks away. So that'll really conclude us. So thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Weekly Bobcat Breakdown. As I wrap up, remember to subscribe to the Bobcat YouTube channel, or the Bobcat Bulletin YouTube channel, so that you can stay updated on all things Texas State athletics. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next week.